ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमपदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनामने गौतसे नमः। वंशकल्पातरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरे प्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Just give me a quick second. There's a lot of light issue here. Hare Krishna. All right. So, welcome everyone for today morning. Our discussion on the Bhagavat Life program has been happening for months altogether, maybe close to a year now. I don't exactly remember when we started even. We'll take a look at it. So, today we are beginning from third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're going to start with the first chapter. The first chapter of this chapter has 45 verses, and the high level discussion in this chapter is Parishit Maharaj asked a question to Sukadeva Goswami, which was asked by Shaunakadi Rishi to Suta Goswami at the end of the second canto. Similarly, Parishit Maharaj asked Suta Goswami, recalling the conversation, begins to quote here. And the conversation begins between Sukadeva Goswami and Parishit Maharaj. Parishit Maharaj inquires about Vidurji's reason for travel, and then Sukadeva Goswami begins to talk about it. So this chapter largely talks about in what situations, circumstances Vidurji left Hastinapur and he began his pilgrimage. First thing. Second thing, what did he do during his pilgrimage? So the very first part, why did he left his palace and comfortable living? That brings about a very important discussion about how to deal with material tribulations. First part. Second part of the discussion is his pilgrimage. That establishes a few essential points. One is about the history of deity worship. There are many atheists or those who want to abolish deity worship for XYZ reasons. They say deity worship is a recent phenomenon. Other thing, how should we perform our pilgrimage is an important part of discussion. And then during the pilgrimage, he comes across Uddhav ji. And then after meeting Uddhav, although Vidurji during his travel had got to know about disappearance of Yaduvamsha, the defeat of the Kauravas, etc., yet after meeting Uddhava, out of eagerness to know about, because Uddhava was one of the associates of Lord Shri Krishna from Dwarka, and he was one of the last person to have met Lord Shri Krishna before he concluded his earthly pastimes. So Vidurji inquires from Uddhavji. So series of question comes at the end of the chapter, almost around Krishna, Yaduvamsha, then Pandavas, like that is being inquired, and finally the chapter ends with Vidura making a request to Uddhavji that I would like to hear about Krishna. So that's a high-level flow of this chapter. Few points of consideration where we would highlight. One is how to deal with material tribulations, history of deity worship, and third is importance of pilgrimage and how to carry out a pilgrimage. These are a few key things that I can remember right now. We'll take a look as we begin the discussion. So if anyone would like to share a screen so that I don't have to do the management here, I can read from my book. So if Mother Medhavni is there, she can share the screen when we look at the verses. So we will not read out all the shlokas. We'll read some important shlokas and we'll focus on the key points. So let's begin at least with the first shloka here. Shri Shukavacha evametat pura prashto maitriyo bhagavan kila shatravanam pravishtena tyaktva sagraham muraddimat. Sukadeva Goswami said, after announcing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of His Grace Maitreya Rishi. Text number 2. What else is there, Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Parishit, what else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Shri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. And now text number 3, where Parishit Maharaj asks the question to Sukadeva Goswami. So Krishna Chandra Prabhu, if you would like, you can be my reading partner for this class. So you can read the shlokas translation, and where I need to pause, I'll pause and we'll discuss. Text number 3, translation.
Translation. The king asked Sukadeva Goswami, where did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my lord, and describe this to us.
Then the next Parishit Maharaj justifies his inquiry, and a very important verse. Nahi alpa tadastasyam vidurasyam latmana tasmin variyasi prashna sadhu vadu brahmitaha. My inquiry about Vidurji's travel and his meeting with Maitreya Muni is the best in the sense, sadhu vad upabrahmitaha is approved by the saints and sages. Why? Because I'm making an inquiry about the pure devotee of the Lord and his life and his activities, which is not different hearing about Krishna Katha. Like that is the point here. Please read the translation.
Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to His Grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful, on the highest level, and approved by learned circles.
So Prabhupada in the pulpit makes an important point about what kind of inquiry should be made. Prabhupada writes here and also in second canto, because second canto first verse begins with an inquiry itself. There also Prabhupada writes, and I believe third or fourth verse, where the Sukadeva Goswami glorifies Parishit Maharaj's inquiry. Then Prabhupada says this whole world is made up of questions and answers. Everyone is asking something or other. Yes or no? How many of you have seen this? People always have something to ask. Ye kyun, wo kyun, aisa kyun, waisa kyun. Everyone is asking questions. So, but the life is not all about some mundane questions and answers. What kind of question should be asked to a spiritual authority? What kind of question should be discussed is very important. Otherwise, largely our questions are discussed according to aha, nidra, bhaya, maithunam. People are only bothered about these things. But here, Vidur Prashit is saying, because I'm inquiring about Vidur, and of course, Vidurji is pure devotee, Maitri very, very great personality and a great devotee of the Lord. So that hearing about their discussion is recommended by the sadhus because it is all purifying. Why? Because the conversation cannot be anything but apart from Krishna. It's Krishna Katha. Text number 5, Sutta Goswami speaks. Please read.
Sri Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Sukadev Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus, being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively.
So, text number 6 onwards, Sukadev Goswami began to, how did Vidura and Maitreya met? He goes back into the history and talks about the situation in which Vidurji first of all left the kingdom. And what led to Vidurji leaving the kingdom? He just gives the background. So here in the next series of verses, you'll see about the atrocities performed by Kauravas on Pandavas. That is what it is. So Prabhu, we can continue reading the verses up to, let's say, verse number 10. Translation. Continue from verse number
Sri
6.
Sukadeva Goswami said, King Dharashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest son, and thus he set fire to the LIKE house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. The king did not forbid his son Dushana's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhishthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breast. Yudhishthira, who was born without an enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling, but because he has taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dharashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusion. Lord Krishna was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as the spiritual master of the whole world, and although his words were heard by some, like Bhishma, as pure nectar, it was not so for the others, who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king Dharashtra or Duryodhana did not take the words of Lord Krishna very seriously. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother Dharashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state.
Hare Krishna. So, in the following verses, Sukdev Goswami is speaking, and Sukdev Goswami says Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. So, when he's saying in the 6th verse he was blind from birth, Sukdev Goswami is not only indicating to that, but by recounting the incident of House of Lac, where they had plotted to kill even Mother Kunti along with Pandavas, this kind of indicates that Sukdev Goswami is saying that Dhritarashtra was not only physical blind, but also spiritually blind. If somebody is physical blind, it does not limit or prohibits from him making a spiritual progress. But the problem with Dhritarashtra was he was spiritually blind also. Then insult to Draupadi is being recalled, then the gambling match. In there, Sukdev Goswami is saying Yudhishthira Maharaj was Ajata Shatru. He did not have any enemy. And then Lord Shri Krishna has to go personally as a messenger. Why? Because Kauravas were not willing to return the rightful share or the kingdom as due, to the Pandavas as per the terms and condition. And after Lord Shri Krishna was sent as a messenger, after this is described how in text number 10, Dhritarashtra called for Vidura for consultation. So in the 9th verse, it is mentioned that despite Lord Krishna speaking to them, the king Dhritarashtra and the son Duryodhana could not take the words of Lord Shri Krishna very seriously. So Prabhupada writes why it happened. Because of the exhaustion of their pious results of their past deeds, they could not take the message very seriously. That is the way of person who have no credit of pious deeds. By past pious deeds, one may become the king, but because the results of the past pious acts of Duryodhana and company were dwindling, it became evident from their actions that they were sure to lose the kingdom to the Pandavas. I'm reading from the purport of the Text number 9. So two things Prabhu is saying. One is because of pious activities, somebody becomes as great as a king. So Duryodhana had the pious activities because of which he became the son of a king like that. But they could not hear the words of Krishna. To even hear the words of Krishna, you require a certain amount of piety. So therefore, I often say this point, before you start teaching people, first of all, we need to create a background for them, a background of piety, as Srila Prabhupada did. And how do you create a background of piety for them? Prasadam distribution and chanting Hare Krishna. And that is a very instant and a fast way of creating Bhakti Unmukta Sukriti. So, and then they are in a condition to hear the Krishna Katha or the instructions of Krishna. So the Prabhupada is saying because Kauravas could not listen to Krishna's instruction, it's an evidence that their pious results are getting exhausted, which implies that they would very soon lose the kingdom also, because the pious results are exhausting. So, which means in our context, we might see somebody being very successful, but hardcore atheist, or maybe radical also for that reason. So, from one perspective, we may see him materially progressing, may have a great wealth, but because he is not able to understand the message of Krishna consciousness or of the Supreme Personality Godhead, be assured what you see is an indication of his dwindling empire. It's a matter of time when everything will be taken away. It's not going to be with him forever. That is something which is highlighted here. Text number 10, Vidurji is invited by Dhritarashtra for giving an expert advice. And text number 11, Vidurji spoke. And what it says, Ajata Shatru Pratiyachadayam Titikshato Durvishaham Tavagaha Sahanujo Yatra Vrakodarahi Swasan Rushayatvam Malam Bibeshi. Vidurji also says, Ajata Shatru, the Yudhishthira Maharaj have no enemy. Please return his legitimate share, who has been forbearing all your injustices all this while. Don't commit further sin by, not giving or not fulfilling your conditions like that. And then text number 12, Vidurji says, Lord Krishna, the personal God, had accepted the sons of Pratha as his kinsmen, and all the kings of the world are with Lord Krishna. He is present in his home with all his family members, the kings and the princes of Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers, and he is their Lord. So, Sama, Dama, Bhed, all that is applied here. The first thing is told, understand it. Be logical. You have to fulfill your conditions. You cannot give it up like that. And then a fear is arisen in the heart, at his intention is to arise fear in the heart of the Dhritarashtra. Krishna is by the side of Pandavas, not only Krishna, but the whole Yadu Vamsha, who have defeated far greater army than we could ever amass, collect like that. And then Vidura sees nothing is happening to Dhritarashtra. And then he gives a Brahmastra in text number 30. He chastises. Saesha dosha purashadrid aste graha pravishto yamapatyamatya pushnashi krishna vimuko gatashis त्याजास अशैवम कुल कौशलाया कुल कौशलाया. अगर आपको अपने कुल का कौशल, if you have any care or concern for the well-being of your kula, what you should do? Tejash ashaivam. Tejash ashaivam. Ashu means, please bring the verse. Tejash, ashu means immediately. Tyag, asha. Tyag means give up. Ashaiva means this inauspiciousness. Give it up as soon as possible. Who Vidura is indicating to? Saesha dosha. Viduraji is right now pointing at the Duryodhana while speaking to Dhritarashtra. Saesha dosha. He is a fault personified. Purusha Dvidase. This rascal has in fact become inimical of Lord Shri Krishna. Graham Pravishtu, and you have given him entry to your house. Yamapatya Matya, considering him to be your son. Pushnashi Krishna Vimukho Gatashi, and this rascal has become averse to Krishna. Therefore, Tyag, give it him this inauspiciousness if in case you care for the protection of your kula, well-being of your kula. Thank you. So, two things that we can see from this particular verse here. One is the importance of having a guide in our life. Now, it's a different thing that Dhritarashtra was very fortunate to have Vidurji as a minister for him, who can give the best of the advice. But with Dhritarashtra's disqualification or his lack of piety, that disqualified him from understanding Lord Shri Krishna or Vidura's instruction. But the principle holds true. And the principle is, if you look at Dhritarashtra, it's not that he didn't knew what would be the consequences of the war. It's just like a smoker. It's not that he doesn't know what would be the consequence. But when you become attached to something, it becomes very difficult to give up the attachment. So Dhritarashtra was attached to his son, not exactly attached to his son, he was attached to his possession. And the greatest possession that he was attached to was the throne. And that attachment led to his blindness. In other words, which prohibited him from understanding. Similarly, all of us, we are not immune to the effects of modes of material nature. We have our own attachments. It could be to possessions like the Dhritarashtra, and then from that it gets like extended attachment to different things. It could be our attachment to the name. I am so das, so dasi. I am a great devotee. Different things can come into our life. So if you see what at least gets highlighted for me, whoever we are, we always need a superior guidance to remain progressive. And if you don't have the superior guidance, then we can get distracted, even if we are as great as Bharat Maharaj. He was at Bhava Bhakti platform, yet he got distracted from his path. So that's the first thing. Second thing, we should never underestimate our limitations. We should not think, or in other words, we should never overestimate ourselves, which means we should always have this disposition of humble disposition, where we are willing to get or receive feedback about what is right, what is wrong. Although it is going to be painful, but we should be willing to accept the feedback. Now, if Dhritarashtra had that ability to accept the feedback of Vidurji, the war could have been averted. Now, what Vidurji gave? Vidurji gave a feedback to Dhritarashtra here. And he said, you are actually you're actually raising a snake to whom you are feeding a milk day after day, whose poison is only increasing and will bite each and every family member of yours and kill. Yet, Dhritarashtra could not accept this feedback. So why we fail to accept feedback? Because we overestimate our qualification. So, or other way around, we underestimate our limitations. No, there's no problem with me, or whatever problem is very limited, like that. So these are the two things that we can reflect from Vidurji's involvement here and Dhritarashtra's reaction. Text number 14. All right. Please read translation, Krishna Chandra. 14th verse. Oh, wait. You need to unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
While speaking thus, Vidura, whose personal character was esteemed by respectable persons, was insulted by Duryodhana, who was swollen with anger and whose lips were trembling. Duryodhana was in company with Karna, his younger brothers, and his maternal uncle Sakuni.
So why it is mentioned about his company? It's a lesson to be drawn. We should be watchful of our association, in particular of bad association. Which is a bad association? Any association, if fault finding happens about other Vaishnavas or other people, but in general, that is a bad association. We read recently somewhere, if I am correct, a devotee of the Lord never takes sides. He maintained neutrality. We read in our Bhagavatam discussion only, right? If I'm kind of missing, if any one of you can pull out that purport, I'll really appreciate that. Which purport? I believe should be your second canto. There we would have read it. So what was I saying, the point? So yeah, what is a bad association for devotees? You may say, oh, Prabhuji, I don't have worldly association. But yes, we still have an opportunity of bad association within the devotee circle. And that is an association where people often find faults. for petty issues, or they do complaining, and then based on their association, we also become biased. No, we should maintain a distance. If you find yourself around to be in a situation, people are complaining, fault finding, walk away. Not good at all. Not good at all. Not good at all. That just makes us biased, and it covers our perceptions of reality. There's a point here. Text number 15. Please read Krishna Chandra Prabhu. Now, just see how, the kind of anger Duryodhan got into. It just indicates how much envious he was as an individual. Only such a person can speak such an abusive thing. Let's see what Duryodhan said to Vidura. Very abusive thing. Text number 15.
Who asked him to come here, this son of a kept mistress? He is so crooked that he spies in the interest of the enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath.
So two things, when we look at the translation, other from the pulpit. One, in the translation we can see Duryodhan did not insult Vidurji alone, but insulted more than that Vidurji's mother. That is unacceptable. What is mother's role into all this incident? But that just indicates how uncultured Duryodhan was, and the result of the bad association had on him. What did he say? Oh, a son of a prostitute, a kept mistress? How dare he speak? And who had been appointed as a minister by his father, the king of the country. Duryodhan has no right to speak like this. He could have. So this is what happens. So Duryodhan could not accept a feedback, and when we cannot accept a feedback, which means we overestimate our ability or underestimate our limitations, we can never grow. We can never grow. That's what happened. So in the purport, Prabhupada writes some very beautiful point. I really love it. Is the last 4 lines, Krishna Chandra Prabhu, if you look at the purport. Such is the situation. Yes.
Such is the situation of palace life and the intricacies of diplomacy, that even a faultless person like Vidura could be charged with something abominable and punished. Vidura was struck with a wonder at such unexpected behavior from his nephew, Duryodhan, and before anything actually happened, he decided to leave the palace for good.
Hare Krishna. 2 things. Vidura has been greatly insulted. Other thing, Vidura had given his life in service to the king and to the kingdom. Nothing had been remembered while cursing him. His service has been taken away immediately at the span of just like a flick of a finger, and he has been disowned like that. So this is the ugly truth about the nature. There's a very beautiful statement which I came across. The success introduces you to the world, and the failure introduces the world to you. A very profound statement. It's actually spoken by one Italian actress when she went through years of struggle in her life, and that was her realization. What was it? The success introduces you to the world. When you become famous, then you are introduced to the world. You're so and so great personality, and then you have one perception of the world. But failure introduces the world to you. What it means? Dukhalayam ashashvatam. The harsh reality, the truth of the world comes naked when you face failures. So here, if you take an example of Vidurji, apparently he is a failure. He's a failure. He worked all his life, he rendered service. He should have been, everyone, let's say, doing a professional responsibility, everyone looks for a peaceful and a relaxed retirement period, right? And I'll get my, post-retirement, some sort of income, they call it, right? You get it. So I'll get that kind of a fixed income and I'll have a good time with my family. Isn't it? Now, Vidurji gave all his life and suddenly everything is taken away. We'll see that in the next verse where, Duryodhan say, take everything away from him except for his breath. His house has been taken away, his future guarantee has been taken away, everything. In other words, Vidurji is a failure. But what this failure has brought Vidurji to. The failure that Vidurji had underwent has introduced the world to him. And what is the world? Which is the real picture of the world. That is Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. So those who only live or who only have got success, they've actually not seen the truth of this world. But those who have gone and seen the failures, actually they know what is the real nature of the world and they prepare themselves accordingly. Third point that I wanted to make here, look how cruel this material nature is. She did not even spare Yamraj. What to speak of us? Vidurji is not different than Yamraj. Vidurji is Yamraj. Yamraj is one who gives punishment. And that same Yamraj is today has been punished by the material nature. Or Durga Devi for that reason. So that is the harsh truth of life. Therefore, Krishna very candidly speaks in Bhagavad Gita, Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. Nobody could be spared at the hand of material nature. All right. Text number 16. Please read.
Thus being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quitted his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme.
Super puppet. Please mark it for yourself. I'll give you a quick synopsis of it. Very, very important purpose. Let's do a little thought process on it. I mean, it's just but natural. This is how we're going to do it. But let's just, for the sake of discussion. Now, Vidurji has been very greatly insulted, not mildly, very greatly insulted. And worse than that, not only he, his mother has been insulted. वो तो बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया, बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया. So you can see Vidurji is in an extreme situation. Now let's talk about for us. Now, when we are even mildly rebuked or corrected, which appears to be as an insult to us, how many of you agree? I'm not saying in this only in relationship to a teacher, but I'm just saying in general, when we feel that we have been insulted, embarrassed, by somebody, how do we generally? What is our mindset? How many of you agree? Generally, we, the revengeful attitude kicks in, and our mind goes into the planning phase. You know what? This time I tolerated. Next time if it's going to happen, I'm going to say this and this and this. I'm going to take my revenge. How many of you how many agree with that? If you notice that by default, this revengeful attitude kicks in, isn't it? I would say 200% we agree with that, like that. So there's a transition that has to happen in our consciousness, and for this transition to happen, what transition to happen? Let's say how Vidura reacted, and then we'll talk about how to come to that stage, how to come to that consciousness. Is that impossible? No, I don't think so. It's very possible, quite doable. Let's take a look at it. So, how did Vidura reacted? An extreme example of an insult. Vidura understood three things. First of all, Vidura reacted. How did he reacted? He said, Haribol, that's all. I leave. And he quit. He went to pilgrimage. He didn't went and cried, latched onto the shoulder of somebody and he cried and he complained, जीवन सेवा करी, जीवन इसकी काम करा, सब कुछ छीन लिया. He didn't do anything. He didn't wasted his time and energy finding fault. He just walked away and absorbed himself fully in serving Krishna. Now, something like that you can think in the life of Srila Prabhupada also, as Abhay Day, when his wife sold off the manuscript. And what did Prabhupada do? He didn't make a hue and cry. Prabhupada said, all right, that's it. Enough is enough. What I'm going to do? I'm going to go and take full shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. So the devotees' approach in such kind of crisis situation is they become wholehearted surrender to Krishna. Why? How they do so? What gives them the strength? Now this is their understanding. First is material nature is ugly. You cannot expect anything better out of it. If we have been expecting something better out of it, that's our illusion. First thing. Second thing, Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra are not acting. Prakritiya kriyamanani guna karmani sarvasha ahankara vimunatma kartamiti manyate. Who is acting? Prakriti. It is by the Prakriti, according to the conditions of the Prakriti, these two people, or let's say Duryodhana, have spoken to me like this. So why should I blame Duryodhana for it? Because nobody performs. We just read today morning in Bhagavad Gita, the soul does not perform any action. Action is performed by the body, and body is under the control of material nature. Of course, there is a desire. That's a different thing, but there is a desire, no doubt about it. But it allows us to disconnect ourselves from an individual and pinning a blame to him. Third thing, everything happens according to karma. So what I have received is nothing but my own karma. And the fourth thing, everything happens under the direction of the Supreme Lord, which means there is a higher plan for me. There is a higher plan. Now, let me tell you, let me put this into another format, let's see if it makes sense to you. Imagine, there is a boil on your leg and it is becoming incurable. You try to break it, you puncture it, and again it manifests. It is just not going away, whatever you try. And finally, the doctors say, well, this boil, there's no way you can get rid of this boil. There's only one way, surgery. I have to cut it out. Now, is it going to be easy, pleasurable? Is it going to be very painful? So, our attachments to this world are like boils. And getting away from it, getting rid of it is going to be painful. That could be attachment to our family members, our kids, our relatives, and whatnot. Eventually, we will come to one single realization. Dukhalayam ashashvatam. This world is totally useless. And I should take full shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It took many, many years for Vidurji. Fine. Similarly, it can take many years for us. But when we study with this, we at least, when we are faced with any such situation, just for a second, withdraw yourself. And then think about it. Prakriti Kremanani. Why do I blame this person? Is acting according to the law of nature. Second, he's been inspired to act because he has to give the result of my own action. And thirdly, let me look into it. What Krishna wants me to do. What Krishna wants me to do. And Vidurji understood Krishna wants me to walk away. Why I should walk away? What was the hidden benefit for Vidurji to walk away? Because Vidurji walked away from that incident, it protected him from engaging in war. And then he would have been more into a difficult situation. So there was a perfect plan of Krishna for him. Otherwise, Vidura would have been a far much more difficult situation. He would have been like Bhishma Pitama, standing by the side of Kauravas and fighting. But no, Krishna had a different plan for him. So Krishna did a different kind of a surgery for him and allowed him to excuse himself with a valid reason, because Duryodhana disowned him, right? And Dhritarashtra did not prevent that, which means that the king have disowned him. Now he's not bound by his obligation, because people used to be very duty bound before. Now I've been disowned, I've been released from my service. That's it, I can go. And what did Vidura? Vidura didn't go back to his wife and he cried, oh, let's pack our bag and go. No, Vidura immediately left. Vidurji immediately left. That's his greatness. That's his greatness. And that is all we see in this purport. Prabhupada will mention about it. Now from 17th verse up to 24th verse, his pilgrimage is described. I'll give you a synopsis. We can read the translation here. So first, the purpose of pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is only a pilgrimage if we go with an intention of purifying ourselves. Purification of conscience can only happen, not happens by taking a dip in Ganges, by visiting different holy sites. It does do, but it does very limited. The purification happens by taking shelter of a sadhu and hearing from a sadhu. Third, the purpose of pilgrimage. When we go out for pilgrimage, we should willingly accept austerity. We should not look for comfortable situation, because without austerity there is no progress. Better we willingly accept austerity. I'm not saying live unnecessary austere condition, but because of whatever the rule of this country for last couple of decades, most of our holy sites have not been developed or taken care properly. So the basic facilities are missed out at times. It does not mean because certain basic facilities are missing, we should not go for pilgrimage. No, we should still go. Like Viduji went, he lived very simple life. And the fourth thing Prabhupada mentioned through this sort of discussion is when Viduji went, where did he go? He walked by the bank of Ganges and Saraswati, and he visited many holy sites. Every holy site had a magnificent temple of Lord Vishnu, and there were huge deities. And then Prabhupada talks about Archavigraha. And then Prabhupada says, this proves, because this happened more than 5,000 years ago, this proves 5,000 years ago deity worship was there. Unlike some foolish scholars that say deity worship was very recent. Second thing, if the deities were existing, which means the deity worship was happening long before even 5,000 years ago. So it is a fact. That's how Srila Prabhupada establishes the fact of how this deity worship is an ancient tradition, and all Vedic scriptures speaks about it. So that's the thing. Let's Krishna Chandra read translation from 17th verse to text number 22. Continue. You can say the text number and then read.
Yeah, text 17. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of the pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapur, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's lotus feet, with a desire to gain a high order of pious life. He traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. Text 18. He began to travel alone, thinking only of Krishna, through various holy places like Ayodhya, Dwaraka, and Mathura. He traveled where the air, hill, orchard, river, and lake are all pure and sinless, where the forms of the unlimited decorate the temples. Thus he performed the pilgrim's progress. Text 19. While so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places. Although he was in the dress of a mendicant, had no hair dressing, nor a bed on which to lie. Thus, he was always unseen by his various relatives. Text 20. Thus, when he was in the land of Bharatvarsha, traveling to all the places of pilgrimage, he visited Prabhashetra. At that time, Maharaj Yudhishthira was the emperor and held the world under one military strength and one flag. Text 21. At the place of pilgrimage at Prabhasha, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives had died due to violent passion, just as an entire forest burns due to fire produced by the friction of bamboos. After this, he proceeded west where the river Saraswati flows. Text 22. On the bank of river Saraswati, there were 11 places of pilgrimage, namely Trita, Usana, Manu, Pritu, Agni, Asita, Vayu, Sudasa, Go, Guha, and Trahadeva. Vidura visited all of them and duly performed rituals. Text 23. There were also many other temples of various forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, established by great sages and demigods. These temples were marked with the chief emblem of the Lord, and they reminded one always of the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Text 24. Thereafter, he passed through very wealthy provinces like Surat, Sauvira, and Matsya, and through Western India, known as Kuru Jangala. At last, he reached the bank of the Yamuna, where he happened to meet Uddhava, a great devotee of Lord Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I'll just give you a quick this thing. You can mark for yourself text number 17 and text number 18, very important purports, where you'll get to know about the history of Archa form. Text number 19 talks about the duties during pilgrimage, and we have read up to text number 22. And text number 23 actually gives the history of temples. So you can read out at your time. Now, text number 24 onwards, it is described the meeting between Vidurji and Uddhavji. Please read text number 24 translation.
Thereafter, he passed through very wealthy provinces like Surat. I think I read this 24. 25, Prabhu?
24 you have read. So 24, yes, 25th verse.
Yeah, text 25. Then, due to his great love and feeling, Vidura embraced him, Uddhava, who was constant companion of Lord Krishna and formerly a great student of Brihaspati. Vidura then asked him for the news of the family of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Text 26.
All
Please.
right. So what happens now from 26 onwards, Vidurji is going to ask about different personalities. We'll skip reading this. You all can read it out at your reading assignment time. So 26 he asks about Lord, then 27 he asks about the father of Lord Vasudev, then about Pradyumna, then about Shamba, and then Satyaki, then Akrura, Devaki, like that about different personalities he asked from the Yaduvamsha. And then finally, text number 36 onward, he began to ask about Pandavas, like Yudhishthira, Bhim, 38 Arjuna, 39 Nakal Sahadev, and text number 40 about Mother Kunti. And then text number 41. Please go to text number 41. He has asked about Yaduvamsha's members of that. He asked about Pandavas. And now he comes to Dhritarashtra. What does he say about Dhritarashtra? Text number 41.
O gentle one, I simply lament for he, Dhritarashtra, was rebelled against his brother after death. By him I was driven out of my own house, although I am a sincere well-wisher, because he accepted the line of action adopted by his own sons.
Papat.
Vidura did not ask about the welfare of his elder brother because there was no chance of his well-being, only news of his gliding down to hell. Vidura was a sincere well-wisher for Dhritarashtra, and he had a thought about him in the corner of his heart. He lamented that Dhritarashtra could rebel against the sons of his dead brother Pandu, and that he could drive him, Vidura, out of his own house on the dictation of his crooked son. In spite of these actions, Vidura never became an enemy of Dhritarashtra, but continued to be his well-wisher. And at the last stage of Dhritarashtra's life, it was Vidura only who proved to be the real friend. Such is the behavior of a Vaishnava like Vidura. He desires all good, even for his enemy.
Text number 42. We can read the verse, nice verse. Soham hare mritya vidambanena dasho nranachalyato vidhatuhu nanyopalakshya padavim prasadas charami pashyangata vishamayotra. Please read the translation.
I am not astonished at this. Having traveled over the world without being seen by others, the activities of the personality of Godhead, which are like those of a man in this mortal world, are bewildering to others. But I know for his greatness by his grace, and thus I am happy in all respects. So, very beautiful purport. So, Vidurji is saying, I am not astonished. Astonished at what? People don't accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because he appears as a human being. Chapter 9, verse number 11, Manasham Tanur Ashrataha. People, when I appear as a human being, people don't accept me. People find, people are bewildered. They cannot accept Krishna Ram as a Supreme Lord. They think, oh, he's like us, human being. But I know of his greatness by his grace. And thus I'm happy in all respects. So, Vidura says, I know of his greatness by his grace. So, this is something which we have to always remember. It is only possible by the grace of the Lord that we could be protected from his Maya Shakti. So, why Vidurji is not under the influence of Maya Shakti? Because of the grace of the Lord. And then Vidurji says, thus I'm happy in all respects. So, in the purport, Prabhupada focuses on how devotees are fearless. The one who is Narayana Parayana, one who is, has taken a shelter of the Supreme Personality Godhead,
Or in other words, one who is becoming purified of his material contaminations, he would become fearless. This is another way to really measure our situation. How much fearful are we, or how much fearless we have become as compared to what we were before? You know, I would say don't become really too much manic about it, but this is the one way Prabhupada mentions about it, you know. And Prabhupada says a person should not be in the renounce of life unless he is firmly convinced of being protected by the Lord. Now, Vidurji was kind of acting in a renounce order, walking from one town to another town, going through the forest and everything. Think about it. He has no means of protection for himself. He's fully dependent on the Lord, walking. How can he do so? You know, you're talking about 5,000 years ago. You know, people would have to travel from one forest to another. There were not so much travel across different cities those days. You know, just like even you talk about Ramayana, Lord Ram, when he went to Vanvas, when he entered Dandakaranya forest, where did Dandakaranya forest started from? Chitrakoot, which is at the UP and MP border, and down up to Maharashtra, and from Gujarat to Odisha was a complete Dandakaranya forest. Such a huge, vast area was Dandakaranya forest. And after the Dandakaranya forest came Nasik. That was also part of forest only. Then when he went to Hampi, where you know Hanumanji's birthplace is said to be, there he came across Kishkinda. The point I'm making is, in previous times and civilization, the travels were not so frequent from one place to other place. Everything was provided within the same town or a village, or people may go from one town to another town. There was not something like a huge road infrastructure and interconnectivity that we have today. The point I'm trying to make is, when Vidurji is walking all over India, he would have crossed through all kind of jungles, and which means all kind of ferocious animals. Therefore, Prabhupada in this purport is focusing about fearlessness. Vidurji was fearless, therefore he could walk around. Otherwise, he would have got settled one dham. That's the point. That's the background has been made here. Text number 43. Now, why did Lord personally did not kill all the demons is being kind of raised here. Please read the translation.
Text 43. Despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements carried out under the dictation of three kinds of false pride.
Krishna was almost around 89 years old when the battle of Kurukshetra happened. Why Krishna had to wait for so long to really get the earth rid of the demons? Although he personally killed many demons himself, Jarasandha was killed, then Bhaumasura, many others were killed. But still, the largest assembly of warriors had happened during the war of Kurukshetra. So Prabhupada writes the reason at the end of the purport. The Lord always wanted to see his devotee as a hero of some episode which he himself performs. He wanted to see his devotee and friend Arjuna as a hero of the battle of Kurukshetra, and thus he waited for all the miscreants of the world to assemble. That and nothing else is the explanation of Krishna's waiting to kill all the demons like that. What are the three dictations of the dictation of three kinds of false pride? Prabhupada writes in the purport, the false pride arises because of wealth, because of knowledge, and because of followers. Somebody may have wealth, may not necessarily knowledge and followers. Somebody may have more followers. All these three factors. Na janam, na dhanam, na sundarim, kavitam, vajagitish, kamai. No, sorry, not this verse. What is that? Janma aishwarya shuta shive, edaman madhapuman. Mother Kunti says, right? These are the things being discussed here. Text number 44. Please read the translation.
The appearance of the Lord is manifested for the annihilation of upstarts. His activities are transcendental and are enacted for the understanding of all persons. Otherwise, since the Lord is transcendental to all material modes, what purpose could he serve by coming to earth?
Yeah. So Lord does not come to earth because he want to kill the demons. That is a side activity that happens. Lord comes to the earth for his devotees, you know, out of his cause and mercy. And the last was text number 45. We can probably recite the shloka. Tasya prapanna khila lokapana avasthitana anushasane swe अर्थाय जातस्य यदुषोजस्य वार्तां सखे कीर्तया तीर्थकीर्तिः. Translation, please.
O my friend, please therefore chant the glories of the Lord, who is meant to be glorified in the places of pilgrimage. He is unborn, and yet he appears by his causeless mercy upon the surrendered rulers of all parts of the universe. Only for their interest did he appear in the family of his unalloyed devotee, the Yadus.
So, for whom did Krishna appear? Not for the demons, for his devotees. The last paragraph of the purport, the purpose of pilgrimage.
The purpose of pilgrimage is to remember the Lord constantly, and therefore the Lord is known as Tirtha Kirti. The purpose of going to a place of pilgrimage is to get the chance to glorify the Lord. Even today, although times have changed, there are still pilgrimage sites in India. For example, in Mathura and Vrindavan, where we had a chance to stay, people are awake from early in the morning at 4 a.m. up until night time and are constantly engaged some way or other in chanting the holy glories of the Lord. The beauty of such a pilgrimage site is that automatically one remembers the holy glories of the Lord. His name, fame, quality, form, pastimes, and entourage are all identical to the Lord, and therefore chanting the glories of the Lord invokes the personal presence of the Lord. Anytime or anywhere pure devotees meet and chant the glories of the Lord is present without any doubt. It is said by the Lord himself that he always stays where his pure devotees chant his glories. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Questions by Vidura.
Hare Krishna. So we are right on time finishing the chapter. I feel so happy about it. New canto, new beginning, with a new commitment to complete the chapter in 1 hour. So I guess so that way we can ever finish the third canto, which is the longest canto, not the longest, after probably the 10th canto, the longest canto. We'll see. So here, a quick recap. Maybe some of you can share your quick recaps or takeaways from this particular chapter. Anyone quickly? You want to share some quick takeaways or a few things that you remember? You can just share out. One point. Madhusita, go ahead.
Yeah, I understood that when we are facing problem, we have to see that it is the Prakriti Kriya Marani. Prakriti is working. No, we should not accuse the person directly. And then we should just withdraw from the situation. Don't blame
Well,
anybody.
yeah, this
And
is
then
the
wait for the Krishna's plan to reveal.
correct. But again, this is not what Krishna asked Arjuna to do so. You see this. This is not Duryodhana Dhritarashtra who disrobed your wife, and you should see my plan and now walk away. So, how to see Krishna's plan? We cannot understand that. Therefore, we have to have a guidance for it. Otherwise, our seeing would be like of Arjuna, walk away. That is another way of quitting. So, just wanted to clarify that. For Vidurji, this was the best thing to do. And the reason, because it saved him from engaging in the war against Krishna and Pandavas. So, that will not be the best decision. We are not qualified enough to decide what is Krishna's interest, what is Krishna's plan for us. So, yes, we should withdraw. Why withdraw? It's for our good sake. Otherwise, we'll remain troubled and agitated. But if we are an administrator, we need to give a punishment. Punishment has to be given, not with a revengeful attitude. Yudhishthira was still Ajat-Shatru. Although he fought, yet he was Ajat-Shatru. Why? Because he was not envious of Duryodhan. If he was envious of Duryodhan, then why would he would have asked Arjuna to go and protect Duryodhan from Gandharvas? When Gandharvas defeated Duryodhan and kidnapped, he would not have. So, of course, it's a very high level consciousness, but is worthy of discussion and meditating on it. I would say one takeaway from all this is work in guidance. So we know how to deal with tribulations. I don't think so. We'll have the capacity really, at our situation, to think this is what Krishna wants me to do. If Arjuna can get bewildered and think maybe the will of the Lord for me to walk away from the battlefield, so we should take care of that, and that would be a practical idea. Yes, Madhusida.
One question. So we can have one authority for all our questions, or we will have to have different authorities in different fields?
Well, see, when it comes to learning, we should accept learning from different individuals. If you want to learn sitar, would be a different music teacher. Want to learn
Yeah.
madanga, will be a different teacher. But when it comes to life's decision, it should ideally be reconciled with a person wherein we have invested into a relationship over a period of time. Because the person has to know you. Not only you, person has to know things around you, which means your family and things. So then only, unless somebody is at the level of Krishna who knows being as Paramatma about everything, is a different thing. But for anyone else to really give a good advice, meaningful advice, has to know your family situation. So traditionally, we would call such a person as Guru. Guru could be Diksha Guru or Shiksha Guru. But in today's time, the context changes. It's a challenge to find such a person, in devotee community, particularly for Grihastha, because we keep on moving.
Right.
Because we keep on moving, and also because of our own immaturity, not understanding that I need to become loyal to at least one relationship and stay true to it. Otherwise, we get a very flimsy guidance. And the guidance is also, what? Okay, Prabhu, I think this is this. You decide now.
Right.
You only have to decide at the end of it. What does it mean then? So which means is an indication that I have not invested in a relationship, and the individual whom I'm asking does not have faith in me. If he or she has to tell me do this, I will not do it. Because lack of faith is saying, okay, this is this, you do it, and walks away. So this is the larger issue which needs to be reconciled. How to reconcile, I don't know. Because it's a student's responsibility, not the teacher's responsibility. It is a student who has to latch on to the teacher, not the teacher. Teacher has to latch on to his teacher. If the teacher starts latching on to the student, then he'll fall down.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. All right.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Krishna Chandra Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu, coming to Vidura, he did not take side. That's one aspect of it. But he was always very compassionate to the Pandavas.
Correct.
So how do you reconcile? Did he take side? But he did not take part in the war because
See,
the providence he had.
taking sides means becoming biased.
Yeah.
And when you take sides, when you become biased, then you lose touch with other party.
Yeah.
Look how beautifully Vidurji balanced. He continued to remain a minister for Kauravas,
Yeah.
and he continued to help Pandavas because Pandavas were right, Kauravas were wrong. He harmonized it perfectly. He remained true to his profession as a minister to Dhritarashtra, gave the best of the advice for the well-being of the Kauravas. Yet when Kauravas crossed the line, when they became adhamik, then he did his duty of also as an uncle of Pandavas to protect Pandavas. So if you see in Vidurji's life, he is not going around. What happens with taking sides at our level now? When the moment we take side, one becomes friend, other becomes enemy. That is what I said, how perfectly Vidurji balanced. Which was enemy? Nobody can tell. Who was enemy for Vidura? Nobody. If he took Kaurava as his enemy, Duryodhan thought we have taken care of him and he's our enemy. But Vidurji was not enemy of Dhritarashtra. If he was, why would he come back and really rescue Dhritarashtra? If he would have taken sides with Pandavas, he would have only wished, hellish situation for Dhritarashtra. That is what I mean by sides. Because we work in this flip-flop condition, 1 and 0, 1 and 0. If I'm on 1, 0 cannot exist. If I'm 0, 1 cannot exist. No, he was a well-wisher of all. A devotee is everyone's well-wisher. Therefore, I was making a point somewhere in the forum. Let people close their doors for me, but I will not close the door for anyone. I am going to remain well-wisher for everyone. If somebody comes to me, I speak genuine thing. They like or dislike, that is their concern. If they want to talk to me after that or not, it's up to them. But if they approach me, I would not say get out. And I anyways have no need to go to them. Because the devotee is dependent on devotees and Krishna. He doesn't have a need to go and meet any people like this. So it is the others who are dependent on devotees, and as a devotee, we should not close our doors. So I guess I was making a point on the forum. If we develop enviousness, even a single person, that can become so risky, because the nature of mind is the thought of that individual come at the end of life. Therefore, we should not have hatred for anyone. The mind will trick us. Therefore, Booker T. Washington said, a philosopher from America, I would not let anyone kill my soul by making me hate them. So forgiveness is a very important principle in the path of spirituality. Tolerance, all these qualities were inherent to us in the previous ages. Now it has become very, very, limited, hardly to be seen. People have become very restless. But these are the things that we need to work on, think about, and move forward. Making some sense?
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, I want to really extend time. It's almost 9:10. Mother Medhamni will hear your short statement and conclude with that. And she's really going to make it very short for all of us. Yes, Mother.
God. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, I had a query rather than a realization. Actually, both of it combined. So, actually, in the purport, Prabhupada mentions the Lord always wants to see his devotees as he wants the devotee to take the glory. And on the flip side, when the Lord does that, we may also develop that the false ego, right? That, oh, I have done it, right? While we lose that, we've been an instrument in the hands of the devotee to actually do that seva. And the Lord himself derives pleasure in the devotee getting the credit. And how do we understand that we should not develop that false ego, that we have been instrumental in the hands of the Lord to do this service like that?
See, devotee is eager. The Lord is eager for devotee to get the credit. Lord is eager for which devotee? He's a pure devotee. Lord is not eager to give credit to those who are hankering for credit. First thing. Second thing, while doing service, we get some acknowledgement and credit. Our attitude is only because of mercy. What did we knew? Think about it. 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. What did we knew about life? And, okay, second thing. What could we learn about life after reading books? Everything is taught to us. Everything is taught to us. So, despite all this, if I still take a credit, what can be said about it? What can be said about it? The best credit is, or the best appreciation for anyone else, or the best credit to give to anyone else, is to have gratitude for that person. And this is such an important quality that can save us from anything and everything. Somehow I'm getting more and more convinced on this. If somehow we can maintain the sense of gratitude, it can save from all the 6 enemies: Kam, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, Matsarya. Very potent, very powerful. And the gratitude should not be limited in words. We should have some action for it. Gratitude should not be limited to words. It should be in some action form. Then we are genuine about it. Otherwise, there are so many people tell you, thank you, thank you, thank you. There are people who you meet, you come across, they'll come and tell you, Prabhuji, you saved my life, you are everything. And then you walk away, other Prabhu comes, Prabhuji, you saved my life, you are everything for me. They go and tell the same thing to everyone. And you wonder, who saved the life of this individual? Who did what? Everyone is confused. This is not gratitude. This is falsehood. This is, pampering. You're not genuine. Now, if you really had a sense of gratitude, then whoever you feel a gratitude, you'll go and serve that person, period. That's it. So gratitude is not a subject matter of expression of speech, but an expression of heart, which is expressed through your service attitude towards that person. Now, we all are grateful towards ISKCON, we all are grateful towards Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, we take up services whenever we hear something that Srila Prabhupada wants, book distribution. Yes, Jai Srila Prabhupada. That inspires because we feel a sense of gratitude. That is what. Not that Prabhupada ki jai, but we never do anything. No. All right. So, Hare Krishna.
Your answers are so wonderful. It strikes at the right place.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mother Sita. What do you have to say?
I have a small question, Prabhuji, please. So Duryodhana was brought up by Dhritarashtra, who was over ambitious and all. So what was Duryodhana's fault? It was his upbringing. We see many arrogant people. How do we accuse them, and who will take the karmas?
See, in case of Duryodhana, when his birth was to take place, Vidurji saw the omen and he came to Dhritarashtra, disowned the eldest of all. So even at the time of the birth, before the birth only, Vidurji could predict, because looking at the omens, he is a very sinful person. First thing. Second thing, because Gandhari became envious when she got the news that Kunti had given birth. So then she became envious of Kunti. That enviousness kind of, attracted, you can say, attracted such a soul or whatever it is. But, therefore in our culture, when a lady becomes, a mother becomes pregnant, she's really taken care. Not only in terms of what she eats, also she's protected from the outside influences. Traditionally, she's, facilities arranged so she could hear Ram Katha, Krishna Katha more and more. So that her consciousness become pure, and that pure consciousness would affect the consciousness of the child, would purify the child. Prahlad Maharaj became a devotee within the womb because he heard from Narada Muni. Whatever you are, if you hear, you become purified. First thing. So that was the situation of Duryodhana. He was envious, and one
My
of the
question
reasons
is not Duryodhana's fault.
Huh?
दुर्योधन का क्या गलती था?
Galti in what?
Why he had to suffer so many? He suffered. At the end of it, he was the.
As
he was,
you sow, so shall you reap. He caused suffering for others. What do you expect then?
okay. Maybe I'm going on the. I'm thinking he was raised like that. It was his upbringing.
No. He was not raised at all like that. Gandhari is considered one of the chaste ladies. She did not raise, even Dhritarashtra for that reason. There is no reference. I read whole of Mahabharata. There is no reference of Dhritarashtra feeding Duryodhana with any sense of, animosity towards Pandavas. Gandhari, so there is no question of it. One person factor was Shakuni, who had taken a vow to destroy the whole Kuru Vamsha. And he saw Duryodhana as a puppet. Duryodhana was inherently envious. And now this Duryodhana, if you want to know his previous life, that is described later in the Mahabharata, that Duryodhana had his past life. He was chosen by the demons to establish the demonic rule. And the best of the demon was sent as a son of Dhritarashtra. So knowing that Duryodhana was the demon, now to say what was Duryodhana's fault. Now if in case you ask that we saw one family, the child had to suffer a lot, it does not happen like this. Everyone has a history. Nobody is a victim of chance or random. First of all, if let's say the parents were bad, parents gave a bad upbringing, the question is, how come the child took birth in that family?
I understood.
The child must also have done something wrong because of which he took a birth to a sinful family.
So everything is past karma.
Yes. I mean, there are higher authorities who are deciding for you, na?
Yes.
कोई लॉटरी टिकट थोड़ा चल रही है, रैंडम टिकट निकल गया.
I will.
Right? Hare Krishna. Thank you all. We conclude here. We'll meet next Friday with the second chapter and third chapter, which will be very sweet, where there will be a kind of a prelude to the whole 10th canto, where Uddhava will go in ecstasy and will remember various beautiful pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. Like that, we'll briefly discuss that. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna.